And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. And we are following the 6th Congressional District. We've invited all the candidates. 18 of them for an interview, and we'll be posting these on our YouTube channel for the voters in that 6th Congressional District. We are joined now, today's candidate, we're joined now by Mr. Republican. He registered Republican when he qualified, Mr. Bruce LeVell. Mr. LeVell, how are you this morning?
Good. Thanks for having me. Great.
Well, thank you for being here. Mr. LeVell is National Diversity Coalition for Trump and also former Gwinnett GOP chair. Let me ask you a question. Let's just start right into 18 candidates and why you're running for to replace Tom Price in the 6th Congressional District.
Well, thanks for having me too. Well, first of all, it kind of pretty much started back in 08, 09, my passion to run. What happened was, me, my wife, like a lot of folks, were victims of, the bank failures that went on, and a lot of unfortunate situations took place in a lot of their homes and their businesses, et cetera. And my family and my business, we were a victim of extreme government overreach. And one of those things where we were expanding our business, building our business, and our banking institution was sold to another institution. And that institution failed, not by our fault or anything else, but based on, I guess they had too many loans that weren't good or what have you. And so FDIC seized them, and the FDIC came in and gave 80 cents on the dollar and then turned around and gave it to another bank. And then as soon as the other bank acquired it, they called all the loans and gave everyone 45 days to get off the books. And so just for the listeners, the TARP was the bailout money from the taxpayers. And so when all this took place, we pretty much called, all our local elected officials, Congressional as well as State House, State Senate, to get some level of clarity and help on this. And the ones who we talked to said, well, I'm sorry, we can't help you. It's just the nature of the economy. And so I dug a little deeper and found out that a lot of these individuals that I spoke with were getting money from special interests in their campaign coffers. So fast forwarding, along comes a gentleman by the name of Donald Trump, which his name is President Trump. And his what attracted me the most was how he was talking about not beholding the special interest or PACs and lobbyists, and that was very appealing to me. And that is one of the biggest magnets I had, because I understood what could happen when there's so much government overreach into the private sector, and how devastating it can be, and how also devastating it could be if we don't have elected officials that, how devastating it could be if they're beholding or how they're taking money from special interests. So fast forwarding, here we are, 2017, I started working, got tapped by President Trump back in 2015, and traveled with him, flew with him. I opened for him in Georgia, actually, and introduced him to Georgia. And the Macon Coliseum with a maximum capacity of standing room only is pretty exciting. And fast forwarding, we went on and we grew the largest diversity coalition in the history of any Republican candidate in these United States. And we raised the Latino vote to 29%, and we got the African American vote up to as far as 9.5% and 13% African American male. So, in climbing. So, and the list goes on. So, looking back in the 6th, obviously the biggest thing that's when I ask a lot of people, because I own a business here in Dunwoody and I go to church in Alpharetta, and my home is in Sandy Springs, so I'm kind of like planet north, central, south of the district, in terms of live, work, and play and worship. And one of the biggest things that I hear is obviously the traffic It's really starting to affect the quality of life tremendously. And we have a blessing. We have a great county. We have a great district that grows very well. A lot of people attracted to the great schools and our infrastructure, et cetera. But with that comes with mobility and the lack of mobility. And so I think, obviously with my background, I've board MARTA for 3 years, and I was chairman of operations and learned a lot about bus rapid transit and light rails, heavy rails across the country. I served 5 years, and I was also privileged to start Community Improvement District Board with my good buddy Emery Morseberger. We started the first one over in Gwinnett Village, right off that Jimmy Carter exit. So we got a tremendous amount of experience in terms of how to revitalize and how to work with federal highway, road improvements, transportation, as well as public safety. And that birthed a tremendous amount of knowledge for me to understand what that entails and how to work with a lot of the state and federal agencies as it relates to those type of needs in those communities. And so looking at the 6th, we're having a Georgia 400 corridor situation, as well as all our other roads that link into that, going through our neighborhoods, et cetera, that are getting tremendously overcrowded. So the transportation background I bring is pretty heavy. But the interesting thing about that, with President Trump being our president, I think the biggest value that I have is I have a tremendous amount of, should I say, relationship with the entire administration, from the chief of staff all the way down, all the way through the cabinet members, who I got to know over 2 years during the campaigning process. So I still have constant communications with a lot of them. I still on the White House comms list. I still get all the updates on the movement of the VP, the pres. I get everything that goes on.
Who else do you know in the West Wing?
Well, I know Rance, I know Sean, I know Kellyanne. The list goes on. Senator Chao, transportation, good friend of mine.
What about just saying, and congratulations is in order. I think it's an honor to be able to work in any administration, but your daughter's also, she got a job in the West Wing, did she not?
Yeah, she started with Congressman Woodall, and then she went to work with Saxby Chambliss every summer through high school. She went to Marist School here. And from there, the RNC tapped her, and she went to work for Rance Priebus during the election. Well, first she came with the coalition, the Diversity Coalition for College Republicans for President Trump. And then from there, they tapped her to go work in the White House.
Well, congratulations.
So she's had a great journey.
All right, Mr. LeVell, I gave you that time. I give all the candidates enough time to open up. Let's go with some pretty quick questions and try to get some answers now on some things. Obviously, this is the 6th Congressional District. Tom Price has been, he is now the HHS Secretary. Let's go with repeal and replace. Now let's go. Sometimes what I will talk about is what you're hearing in the media narrative, okay? But let's go with repeal and replace on Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. You've seen the town halls, some of the town halls, and you've heard the reports that some Republicans are getting cold feet. What say you about repeal and replace Obamacare if you're, in the next couple months, if you're in Congress?
Well, let me just speak from a personal point of view. And for example, I own a business, Dunwoody Diamonds USA. I'm a jewelry manufacturer. We manufacture platinum, gold, et cetera, et cetera. Been doing it for 24 years. As soon as Obamacare kicked in, which I knew it was terrible, my monthly was $916. It immediately jumped to $1,675 a month. And so I knew it was a terrible situation in the beginning. I knew all along. I knew that being a small business owner, how devastating that would be. And I speak for thousands, and that's another reason why I'm getting in the race because I represent 80% of the nation's debt service, being the small business owner. I feel the pain. I understand how detrimental it is to a small business and how hard it is to, let alone pay sales tax, inventory tax, ad valorem tax, payroll tax, and these high premiums for our insurance is just, it's literally strangleholding the small business owner. And Obamacare did nothing but come in and just devastate us tremendously. So for me to come in, you wouldn't have to worry about me being cold feet because first of all, the cold feet are the ones who are established people anyway. The whole entire swamp is applicable to Democrats and Republicans serving right now, sir. So once again, once we elect people who are not beholding a candidate like myself, I'm not taking any special interest money, no PACs, no nothing. And I'm also not self-funding like other folks. I believe if the people want me in there, it'll come from them. It'll be organic. It won't be throwing a bunch of money in it or taking PACs running my ads, et cetera. It'll just be Bruce LeVell and the people of the six. And how that's being played out is the fact that, especially in relation to your Obamacare, we all know that every time we go to the doctor, we come out, we never know what it's going to be until we get a bill a month later for $300 or $400. The upfront pricing that the president is proposing and putting it back into a free capital market to where it can be should I say competition, meaning that a lot of these insurance companies can be competitive across the country and not just have walls where you can only buy in this area, you can only buy this area over here. I like the fact that these walls, should I say, come down, come crumbling down to where it makes it opens up the market to be more competitive, which will drive the prices lower. So I'm very optimistic with it.
So you're solidly in favor of repealing Obamacare.
Oh, absolutely. You know what, Brian? I got a bill on my desk right now to Humana that's about to choke me as I'm looking at my desk right now.
Well, I hear that all the time, and I hear it. I hear it is the middle class that's left holding the bill once again. So let me move on. The southern border of Mexico. Probably, how quick can you answer? Are you in favor of constructing a wall on?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right, and that being said, what about a border tax? Now, some of these things are, not hypothetical so much. I don't like to push a candidate to answer hypotheticals, right. But you could be there at a time when some of these things come up if elected. So that's why these are not really hypotheticals. These are things that could be taking place. What about a border tax?
I can.
Go ahead, sir.
I can tell you this, just from a small business owner, I'm very, very extremely optimistic about the president's tax cut that's coming up. That's going to really, really help a lot of the small business owners, especially. And you mentioned earlier on the middle class. And one of the things is, for example, I paid out 36% tax out last year in my business, and the payroll taxes have just gotten to be astronomical. So, with that being said, as well as corporate tax, alarm fee tax, occupational tax, I'm very anxious and optimistic when the small business and our businesses get some relief, as well as our companies, to incentivize them to be in to build here in the state side, to build in certain areas to where they don't want to run across the border or to another country. And we don't even have to have this conversation. So I'm more optimistic on the tax relief on the other side of these regulations being depleted that will help small manufacturers and manufacturing, as well as my small company, to incentivize my employees, offer them better health coverage, offer them more, a raise, that word raise that a lot of people don't hear much anymore. So I'm more on the optimism side of the tax relief that's going to actually coincide with as it relates to some of these border taxes.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. What about the, you said you're interested in the president's tax plan. Some economists, there are several economists that say if he increases spending on the military, and he makes a commitment not to touch Social Security or Medicare, and he wants to spend $1 trillion in infrastructure, spending, and the list goes on, that we just don't have the money to do this. We can't cut taxes. What say you where the deficit's concerned? Because on March 15th, which obviously no candidate out of the 18 will be there, on March 15th, John Boehner left us a can kicked down the road that Donald Trump has to deal with in the debt ceiling. So have you looked at all of these things, from infrastructure spending $1 trillion to increased spending in the military, cutting taxes, and the list goes on, how we're going to get our debt under control?
Well, you know, it's interesting because one of the things I remember the president talked about back in early 16, I think it was January, is the fact that if you notice, for example, we spend $8 billion, annually on UN. We spend a tremendous amount of money in South Korea. We spend a tremendous amount of money in Japan. We spend tremendous amounts of money funding all types of programs and initiatives across the entire world. And Brian, it's not very hard to look at your balance sheet. This is a business guy myself. I have a balance sheet up, and I'm sure a lot of people out there listening have a balance sheet when they run their company or their P&L. And one of the things is it's a simple task of a line item. The unfortunate part of the government, as well as it relates to the person who sits in the Oval Office, President Trump is one of the first real strong businessman that is actually sitting in the Oval Office, just like our Senator Perdue over here in Georgia. Great job. We talked about this the other day. I was at a meeting with him about the debt ceiling. It's one of those things where there's so much complete fat out there to pull the fat back in, if you want to call it fat, but pull our money back into the state side, minimize our taxation on our companies. Our economy will grow in itself, especially if you take the burdens off of the 80% of the small businesses who I represent. If you relieve us, just say 9%, 10% on our tax as what we pay in itself, that there's your money right there in itself. Obviously it has to drain somewhere else, because as well as I do, Brian, we have a lot of redundancy in our government. The government should not be the largest employer in the nation. It should be guys like me. We should be the largest employer of the country. So unfortunately, it's going to get very uncomfortable, and I always said in order to get comfortable, we have to get really uncomfortable, especially as it relates to what we've done in the past and how we've done it, and pulling money across from overseas and other places that we've put so much money into stuff that hasn't put value in the United States. There's a lot of cash out there that needs to come back to the United States. The lower taxes. So I'm very optimistic on it that the economy will really take off, especially for small business that get some level of tax relief.
Okay, well, just a couple quick things. The president's executive order of and we know the media misrepresented everything about this, and those are my words and my opinion. The executive order on the extreme vetting for a travel ban. Do you, as being, and the only reason I ask this as being diversity chair for the president, the coalition, what did you think about the one he's going to sign, maybe even today?
Well, you mean the one he did for the 90-day?
He did. Yeah, he did. He signed the one that went to the Ninth Appeals Court, Federal Appeals Court, and we know that. But my understanding is they're recrafting one now. What do you think about the travel ban or the extreme vetting?
Well, the interesting part about it, on our diversity coalition, we have a little over 2 million that are members with us, and if you look on that website, we do have Muslim Americans for Trump, Haitian Americans for Trump. We have a representative from every particular culture across the country, which has been ongoing since 2015. So we do have a great pulse in terms of where our information comes from. However, I will say this, in terms of national security, granted, during the campaign, I did all 3 spin rooms at Hofstra, Missouri, as well as Vegas, and I got to know some of the generals and some of the CIA people Pompeo. I met him several times, and learned a lot throughout the campaigning process. But I will tell you this: the president would not do this unless, based on the intel he started to get, which, remember, when he became president-elect, he was starting to get national security briefings right after November 8th, November 9th. He was getting a lot of that. And so as we moved on to his inauguration, right after that, he was getting a tremendous amount of intel from a lot of countries that he listed that his intelligence were telling him, like, look, we've got some situations here in some of these countries. We need to just hold off what we're doing right now. We need to get our guys on the ground. We need to increase our immigration officers, as well as vetting these situations, but also is to put more pressure on the persons or people who are in charge of their particular countries, their prime ministers or whoever, or their presidents of their countries, to put more pressure on them to be more accountable to the folks that they have in their particular region, and not put the burdens on the American people. So it's pretty much the president's like, look, time out. I don't know what's going on with all this. This has been kicked down the can on Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the board, on the road. But I do believe the president has some level of intel that would pose a threat and imminent danger to the United States, to these particular countries, that he wanted to hold up temporarily, to find out what is going on and to get some level of information that he's clear that he has a comfort level that the U.S. wouldn't have any situations. So, I pretty much stand with that. One thing about these situations, the intelligence, we don't really know the intel as American citizens. We're not in those security briefings, Brian. But one thing I know about President Trump, I know him very, very well. As a matter of fact, I spoke to him at CPAC here back Saturday. And he is a very patriot man as it relates to defending the nation. And he doesn't just do something unless he's really 100% positive that he feels that something could be wrong with a situation. He's just not that type of person. So I have to back him on this.
I've only got about 4 minutes because we are trying to make all the interviews 30 minutes for each candidate. Trust me, I've done interviews where somebody says, well, a candidate got 2 extra minutes. So,
I know.
But anyhow, let me say, okay, a couple very quick things. You know him very well. You just spoke to him at CPAC. The 6th Congressional District is Republican at this time. There's 5
Right.
Democrats and 2 independents who would like to change that. And I do think Tom Perez this past weekend said that he's the new DNC chair, that they're focusing on this race. But I'm going to stay away from that right now. You do know in the 6th Congressional District that Donald Trump, President now, Donald Trump, only won by 1.5% that district, okay? So just a 1.5% went to Donald Trump, the rest went to Hillary Clinton. That being said, let's talk to the people in the 6th district. And these are my words. You haven't said anything like this, Mr. LeVell, but as well as you know President Trump and as just spoke to him this weekend, are the people in the 6th Congressional District going to see a Congressman Bruce LeVell go to Washington and just rubber stamp President Donald Trump's agenda? Or if need, would you push back if you see something you have to push back on?
Well, obviously, yeah, I would push back. But here's the deal with President Trump. Everything that he's talking about affects the 6th Congressional. It does. We're talking about infrastructure. We got this $1 billion project going on here at 400 and 285. They're starting to get ready on that. But like I said earlier in the conversation, the big ask for me, is the fact that the relationship and the connectability as it relates to the 6th and transportation that we desperately, desperately need, that's a strong value that I can bring. That is a tremendous asset to have, as well as, I don't see the Dems making a play on the 6th, but that's another reason why I know I'm the candidate that can deal with that situation if it does come up. With Perez talking about challenging the 6th, which is he's in a dream and he's in the desert somewhere walking around. But that is a tremendous asset that I have, that I can bring. But the other thing too, if you go down President Trump's line item as it relates to national security, transportation, infrastructure, I was at a mass meeting one time, and Senator Beach made a very interesting comment. He says, President Trump, this particular administration will be the biggest reconstruction, overhaul since Eisenhower as it relates to our infrastructure, our roads, and our aging, our airports, and our a lot of things that are going to be a lot. Let's put it this way: there's going to be a lot of activity, but that is one value that, like I said earlier, that I can bring to the six that relates to a transportation ask. But everything that he said about national security and transportation as it relates to infrastructure and lower taxes, how can any one of the six not buy into that? There's nothing in his particular mantra, anything he said that would be detrimental to the six. Obviously there was something that did come up. Obviously, like, hold up, time out, Mr. President. But so far, everything that these policies he's trying to implement are favorable for Republicans here in the six. So until something else comes up that is not favorable for the six, obviously I would say time out.
You've seen all of his nominees for cabinet. You support all the nominees for cabinet and the things that you're seeing on immigration. I mean, everything that you're seeing thus far in 35, 40 days, you support what you see coming out of the White House?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I love the business owners. I love the people who've been very successful in their private sector, who haven't, grown up through the bureaucracy of, government, but has some level of experience in the private sector that want to bring those skills to SBA. Linda McMahon, great lady. Watch her confirmation. Y'all gonna love that one. The experience from, our treasurer, from, Sessions. We have a tremendous amount of really good people. I'm very excited about Congressman Price being in where he is. That's just tremendous. Ben Carson and HUD, I'm on one of the advisories as it relates to the urban renewals across the country. Some of these parts of Atlanta are on that list. There's a lot of moving parts that are going on that with some great people with some great private sector experience are going to be tremendous in the administration. And you remember too, now they're not political paybacks. None of it. Nobody had any money in the game. And watch this too, Brian. Watch our appointments for our ambassadorships. There's absolutely no pay to plays in any of these people. That's where we're going to get a lot of the meat.
I will tell you, and I'm cautious when I say I enjoyed something or agree, because somebody will cut that out and make it look like that. But I did watch CPAC. I watched all of CPAC, right. And I did like when Steve Bannon said, "Hey, look at the other 102 judges we're going to appoint." So I think it's a lot deeper than what people really realize. Mr. LeVell, I could talk all day to politics. Number one, I never run out of things to talk about when it comes to politics. But I'm going to have to cut this off. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how you're going to make your way through 18 candidates. We wish all candidates well in your race, and wouldn't it be neat if you got to debate all 18 candidates? Wouldn't that be a stage?
Yeah, that would be a stage. That's my wheelhouse.
Is that? Well, the interesting thing is I asked the candidate Friday if given the opportunity to debate their opponents, even though there's a lot, would you do that? And would you do that?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we have debates scheduled. Of course I would.
You have debates scheduled? Because I'd like to moderate a debate with 18. I've done 5. The 9th Congressional.
Problem is it would take 4 hours probably.
I don't care. We'll go 4 hours, but because I had an opportunity in the 9th Congressional District with Congressman Doug Collins. There was five opponents, and I had an opportunity to actually a real debate. What some people. The difference in what they call a debate. We had a real debate there, and I would love the challenge of 18 candidates. So you know, I would do that tomorrow. Mr. LeVell, we wish you well. We thank you very much. Wish all candidates well. It's going to be an interesting race.
Yep.
Looks
Thanks.
like it'll probably come down to a runoff, which we know in Georgia it's 50+1. And
Right.
this is actually not a partisan race, but you did register and qualify as a Republican, correct, before we leave?
Right. Since I was 18 years old, that's all I've ever known.
It's all you've ever known. Mr. LeVell, we wish you well. Have a nice day, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We're running a little late. That's Bruce LeVell. He's the chairman of the former chairman of the Gwinnett County Republican Party, and also the executive director of the President Donald Trump's National Diversity Coalition during the 2016 campaign. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. We'll be back after these messages.